Hello, and welcome to our course, the Post-Corona Era. As always with us is Dr. Malika Leitman. Hello everyone. He will answer all of your questions. Our topic today is freedom of choice. I hope that it is an interesting topic. We'll touch very complicated questions, and I hope that the answers will be concrete, not philosophical. There's lots of information about this in many books, freedom of choice, what does it consist of, but there are things that we already know. Suppose our foundation as human beings, our basis is our DNA, our genes, and they actually define everything, our physiology, and also it said that it determines our political views, inclinations towards suicide, towards one thing or another. Do you agree that genes determine everything? Man's qualities. What difference does it make? Genes or something else, some other particles, waves, elements? We have certain given qualities that control us, thanks to which people have qualities, traits, approach to life, and so on. Of course, we can call it genes. But each such foundation has such basis. This appears as genes genes control your qualities. Some qualities that you can change, some you can't. Suppose a child is born in a family of egoists where the only thing that interests them is consumerism and money. And suppose he also has such qualities like being stingy, then he has zero chances of growing up to be an altruist, for example. I don't think so. I disagree. We see in nature also opposite qualities. And our teacher, Balasulam, also writes about this, that you can see an inversion. Many times we see how in Russia, in aristocrat families, you had revolutionists born, or you can see children that are going against their opinion or the direction of their parents, and therefore the qualities of the parents can be revealed in an inverse way in the children. If someone's stingy is inclined toward that, no, you don't have to change that. It's not if you can or can't change it. You don't have to change it. Of course, I think that this is a given that exists in us. These are called the first 9 sfirot in every person, in every partsuf, in every soul, and therefore there's no point in changing this. But we simply have to learn how to correctly use these qualities, like, for example, stinginess. Yeah, but truth, integrity, love, hate, these concepts, are they formed by society, or are these certain inclinations in a person? Surrounding environment. No, surrounding environment, but when they land on this kind of basis. But then, what is this basis that develops the seeds of the surrounding that it grows in? And here you have many other parameters. The qualities of the parents and the grandparents, the family, and the contemporary environment, society, meaning between them you have all these different types of interactions. If I was born from certain parents and I grow up in a certain environment, with the children from my class and different other parameters, depending on what society I grew up in, religious, secular, Western, Eastern. There are many, many parameters that I get even unconsciously, but they influence me. Yeah, many, many givens, parameters. We're talking about genes, we're talking about the qualities that we're born with that don't change, we're talking about society, and there's a fourth factor, like external influences could be, suppose, pandemic like now, or economical crisis, or cataclysms, natural cataclysms, that can influence the development of one or another kind of inclination. If a person's inclined towards stinginess, so if he lives in a country where there's not enough, where there's enough, like in Western Europe, then that does not appear in him. But when there is an extreme situation, this kind of quality can appear in him. Yeah, these four factors, they influence a person at the same time. No, you can't say that. They influence, they're always in action, but each of them to a different degree. And it doesn't depend only on the person, but also on the society and the historic period that he lives in. And I'd say that even on a global level, that it's the plan of creation. So it's very hard to say what depends on what and when. Which of these factors influences man's development to the most? Hard to say that too. Depends at what time and what place. What has a stronger influence over the development of man, genes or society? Genes. So genes have a stronger influence than society. Yes, to come under from the influence of genes is very not simple. And society, the thing is that society, it's very smeared. It could influence you in different ways. At the same time, you also have here concrete forces of it's very hard to exactly say. Also, when Bala Sulam writes about it in his article The Freedom, he also writes about this in general lines pretty much, because there are many parameters that if we take some person, there's no point in getting into this, I think. I want to ask about how will this pandemic influence the development of man? How does it coincide with man's freedom of choice, as if it takes away our freedom of choice? Because we behave in accordance with those circumstances that we live in. We had no free choice before either. We never had any free choice. We only acted in name of our ego, taking into consideration one or another kind of limitation that the environment puts upon us. But actually, we acted only under the influence of one factor, our ego, in order to satisfy it in every given moment. But there was at least the illusion of freedom of choice. You're right, there's no illusion now, but specifically because there's no illusion now, we have the ability to come to a true freedom of choice. So, from your point of view, man's freedom of choice, what does it consist of? To rise above our ego that completely ties us and does not allow us to be free in any way. Meaning, freedom of choice is first of all freedom of your own ego that is given to us from above. Why is it written in many places that the freedom of choice is only in choosing the correct environment? It's when I have to come under from the influence of my ego that controls me in everything, then I already look for, with the help of what means can I do this, and turns out that you can only do it by building the correct environment. that would correctly influence me. Suppose if we're talking about society, any society, egoistic society, reception or receiving from society gives me pleasure, and giving to society, well, makes me suffer. I don't want to give, or I want to give, but to the measure to which I receive from society, to the measure to which it gives me pleasure. If suddenly certain values change in society and society demands, says that it's good to give, that if you give, you'll receive this and that, and I go against my ego, is this the freedom of choice that you're talking about? Freedom of choice is to put yourself under the influence of the correct society in which the quality of bestowal is considered the upper highest, that controls the quality of reception, and then in the same way, putting myself under its influence, becoming integrated in the society, like a small child, simply putting myself in its hands, I can also be able to reach a state where the quality of bestowal will be important for me even more than quality of reception. So, the conflict of going against my natural inclinations where I only want to receive, and on the other hand, society gives me certain values that it's good to give to society. And the conflict between these two awakens some kind of spectrum of actions where I'm free. Yeah. There are many stories about how people sacrifice themselves to the benefit of others, like doctors working around the clock, many other examples. Many rich people are willing to sacrifice their money. You also say that we have to sacrifice our ego. Is this our freedom of choice to sacrifice our ego? No, it's something a bit different, even though that I appreciate all of these kinds of things, but I don't think that this is the corrected state of humanity. The thing is that humanity has to correct its attitude toward each other, its attitude toward the ego, toward altruism, and it's not in any way in relation to... There are people that are willing, out of their ego, are willing to kill others in order for them to preserve nature, or not to litter, or whatever, for the sake of ecology. We see that all of these movements in favor of nature, clean air, the environment, they're all completely egoistic. So much so that there are people with tremendous egos there that are willing to end the life of anyone else that it seems to them that he has any different kind of opinion, that a different understanding of what good means. It is the ego. So you think that help in these extreme situations like the pandemic or other economical crises is natural, and this is not considered a correction. Yeah. This is how it's supposed to be. In normal situations, we should treat each other normally. No, we simply have to understand what our nature is, and the measure to which it collides us with one another, so that we will correctly characterize man's actions. If it hurts me to look at someone else, at some other ill person, and therefore I pay money in order for him to get better, I'm actually not healing him this way, but I soften my pain. I do it in order for it to stop hurting me. So here there are much deeper corrections of our nature that we're talking about. So, I have to do good deeds not because it hurts or I identify with these people, but that it has to be higher than this. Even if I have no relation to them, I have to do it for some higher goal, precisely because of that. So the cause and consequence have to be changed. Okay, we'll talk about this. It's a very interesting point. All people by nature are conformists, meaning they are willing to follow others, follow society, more than to realize some kind of independence of their own. Even Eric Fromm, a psychologist, writes that most of the people don't even understand their need to yield to society. They think that they're individualists and that they came to their own opinion as a result of their own thoughts and scrutinies, and that it coincides with society is just a coincidence. We are a complete result of our environment. What could there be in a person that is his own? Where will he take it from? Please tell me. Well, maybe it's an illusion, but every person feels himself as an individual. Yeah, as an individual, this is given to us by nature. And what now? Well, if you ask any person, he'll say, I took this decision to go to this country, I took that decision to choose this or that profession. Of course, he took this decision, and everyone else around him thinks that it's so, but where did he get this decision from? If we'll dig deeper in, we'll see that a person has nothing of his own. Okay, I have a series of questions, if we could answer them briefly. I'll try. We have time. First question. Conformism, first of all, consists of the opinion of others being very important for us, even if we don't acknowledge that. Why is it so? Why is the opinion of strangers so important to us that we disrespect anyway? How to explain this paradox? It's really a paradox. On the one hand, I deeply don't care about others. On the other hand, they're very important to me in this regard that I want for them to approve me, to accept me. Their opinion is important to me. Yes. Why? On the one hand, they're not important to me in any way. On the other hand, it's important for them to accept me. If even a small mouse, dog, whatever around me in relation to me will show some kind of disregard toward me, suppose, it really will, aggravate me, bother me, it'll bother me. But it has a purpose, right? Yes, it's in order for us to be able to reach the correct kind of connection with the surrounding world, for us to have a mutual good kind of communication, that I will interact correctly with the world, will correctly influence it, and the world will influence me correctly, so that I and the world will be in mutual harmony. So, if I wouldn't have cared about society at all, I couldn't change myself. This is the most important thing. And because of that, I wouldn't have been able to feel the globality and integrality of the general nature. It's known that wars and so on get much more screen time than reports about people that treat each other favorably, help each other, trying to prevent cruelty and so on. And it's more appealing to viewers. Why? If I look on TV, for example, some kind of show that tells about horrors, wars, collisions, some very extreme states, between people someplace, it bothers me more because I could become a part of these events and it could harm me. And the good states that talk about, people are getting together, sitting, talking, singing something, or that they're working together or helping, it does not harm me and it doesn't threaten me in any way. And therefore, my attitude towards it is soft, liberal, and maybe even a bit disrespectful. There were attempts to create good news, to show only good news, but it's not popular. Of course not. It doesn't bother people. A person lives off negative news, suffering, tragedies. Look at what happens in music, art, wherever you look. Wherever you have serious compositions, they're always tragic. And comedies and so on, it's all, light. People like it in between stuff. Next question. In the USSR, there was no cruelty on the screens, but I wouldn't say that people were less cruel. Why? I don't think that in such a society like in the former USSR, the press, movies, theater influence a person. They understood very well that there is a tremendous gap between life and what they're being fed by the government, and therefore they didn't accept it. But still, it says that there is such psychological research of how much all these things, the media influences a person, and there was an iron curtain between man and the mass media, meaning everything that comes from the radio, from television, it went through a filter, and people understood that they're being fed with something, and what do I have to take from this? Maybe just a grain of information, but that's it. And here, we are getting tons of information from all sides. It's all bought and sold, distorted, and we don't even imagine how much. Obviously, that what we hear from on television, read, see, hear on the radio, and so on, all of this is distorted information that different interested parties are pouring on us. But since it doesn't come from one source like the party in Russia, therefore it's hard for us to deal with it. And therefore, whether we like it or not, we're under their influence. We choose out of several thoughts one, even though that it too is false. Public opinion taught people to live according to the principle of on the one hand, socialism. On the other hand, there was capitalism. It's all falling apart. How not to err building a new social... It's a problem. After the pandemic, it's a problem. It's just the first blow. It's not even a blow. It'll just shake us up a bit. And still, this pandemic that didn't end yet, but suppose it will cover us in a horrific way. We'll see a torn up, ruined world that we can't control with our previous means, by our previous means. Not factories, not airplanes, nothing will work properly because everything has to go through a completely new phase of reconstruction, adaptation to the new revealing circumstances. The coronavirus made the world integral, to some extent, somewhat. But from that, we already understand that this world that is demanding of us to build this coronavirus, we're not adapted to it, and we have no idea how can we return to the past, and we can't return to the past. So if we can't return to the past, then 2 billion people remain unemployed. How will they feed themselves? Or how will we meet their basic needs and so on? To this day, governments are spending billions and billions, hundreds of billions of dollars in order to somehow, quiet all this. These dollars, they're disappearing. They won't come back. We won't be able to demand them, to ask to return them to the treasury. And we simply see how the leaders, they only have power but no brains. It's a big problem. We'll talk about this on our next shows, the economical aspect of the pandemic. Another question: do I understand correctly that bring myself closer to keeping the laws of nature is to learn how to receive from society only what I need and to give what I can? Not to the measure of what you can, but everything that you can do in order to bestow and what you need in order to exist on a normal basic level. So this way I bring myself closer to the laws of nature? Yes. This means that I am in balance with nature, giving everything to it and receiving only for the sake of my animate existence. I give on the human level everything. I receive on the level of animals only what I need. But our feelings, emotion, everything that you have to give to society and to receive only what's necessary for your existence on a basic level. Okay, we'll scrutinize this. But the pandemic will bring us to this. If not this one, then the next one. So where is our free choice then? This is our free choice. You're pushed to your happiness. But I thought that it's without that. Please, you have now the opportunity from seeing what's going on and being able to think and do something to equalize yourself with this condition of the complete integral responsibility. But the problem isn't to keep this or not. Before that, there's the question of, why do I have to believe all of this? Maybe it's all untrue. No, this comes from ordinary laws. There's nothing new about this. It's very logical. If you'll start calculating everything that's going on with humanity due to humanity's ego, you will see that this is a force that simply pushes us into our grave. On the other hand, in what way can we act if we are on one small planet? And what do we have left to do? The only thing left to do is to get together and to decide how to exist together under these circumstances. Last question. Despite our egoistic nature, under the influence of society, we can cultivate certain values that are in opposition to our egoistic inclinations. Is this what the freedom of choice consists of? Yeah, very simple. I think that is clear to everyone. Thank you very much. Until we meet again, all the best. Thank you.